You're listening to a special bonus episode of the Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to my 2020-2021 NBA preview here on the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and as promised, I'm going to go team by team, breaking down where I think each team is going to finish in the standings. I'm going to go 1 through 15 in each conference. You'll get my NBA Finals pick. You'll get rationales. Of course you will. This is going to be a lot of fun. It's nice to have another sport besides football. Especially since the Jets are the worst team in football. I don't care that they're not going to have the first overall pick. The Jets are worse than the Jaguars. I'll start with the Eastern Conference. And you can call me a homer if you want to. But I truly believe that the Brooklyn Nets are the best team in the Eastern Conference. A healthy Durant, a healthy Kyrie, LeVert, Dinwiddie, Jordan, Allen, Harris, Shamet. The Nets are just better than any team in the Eastern Conference. I'm not being a homer here. That's what I truly believe. I'm not going to go too in-depth on them since I did my Brooklyn Nets season preview last night. So, let's move to the team that I think is going to finish second in the Eastern Conference. One of the most improved teams of the offseason, the Philadelphia 76ers. They brought in Daryl Morey, and instantly, he turned around the roster. He traded Al Horford and Josh Richardson, and got Seth Curry and Danny Green. All you had to do was watch the Sixers for any period of time. I don't care. 1 minute, one whole season. You could tell that they needed shooting. What can Seth Curry and Danny Green do just as well as any player in the NBA? Shoot. If you were to write down on a piece of paper what the Philadelphia 76ers needed after they were eliminated in the bubble, it would look a lot like Seth Curry and Danny Green. Fantastic job by Daryl Morey. They still have Ben Simmons. They still have Tobias Harris. They still have Joel Embiid. The Sixers had a great offseason. But so did the Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously, locking up Giannis. The Jrue Holiday trade made a ton of sense for him. Dante DiVincenzo's just going to get better. Brook Lopez, I feel like, is still getting better as he's getting older. The guy can shoot now. He could never shoot with the Nets. Well, that's not true. His last year with the Nets, he was able to shoot. But most of the time that he was in net, he couldn't shoot. And obviously, if you have Giannis, you're going to be a really good team. That brings me to the Miami Heat. a team that just didn't get any better. They went on the magical run in the bubble. The Disney magic was working for them. They were the second best team in the NBA last year, but I don't see them duplicating that. They lost Jay Crowder. They didn't add anyone of substance. Precious Achiuwa was a good draft pick, but he doesn't make up for losing Crowder. Crowder did a lot for the Heat last year. They'll be good, don't get me wrong. They're running it back with the core that got them to the NBA Finals. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't see them making a legitimate title run this year. That brings me to the Boston Celtics. A team that got a lot worse this offseason. They lost Gordon Hayward. They didn't really replace him. They're trusting Marcus Smart to fill that void. I get that. But behind him, who do you have? Romeo Langford did nothing his rookie year. I like Aaron Nesmith, but I don't know if I'd be 100% confident in giving him a bunch of meaningful minutes on a playoff team. I'd rather they slowly bring him along. And Semi Ojeleye isn't that good. I also don't like their front court. They lost Enes Kanter. Tristan Thompson is a little banged up right now. Nick alluded to this in the NBA mock draft. When do you say that this core of Tatum, Walker, and Brown just can't get the job done? If they're eliminated in the first round, Celtics fans are going to be screaming bloody murder. I'm telling you, the Pearson-Garnett trade did not hurt the Nets as much as it could have. It's one thing that they didn't have their own picks. But if all the Celtics have to show for that trade is one Eastern Conference Finals appearance, it's not like the Nets gifted the Celtics a dynasty. Could you imagine if the Brooklyn Nets win an NBA title before the Boston Celtics? It's very, very possible. The Indiana Pacers are a really well-rounded team. I don't see any holes on their roster. The reason I have them so low is because there's no star. And the NBA is a league where you need a star. Also, I don't know how Nate Bjorkgren is going to do as a head coach. It's not like he's coaching Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. He's coaching a team that's going to need a lot of work to go on a big run. The Pacers won't be bad. They'll make the playoffs. They'll be a fun team to watch. Brogdon, Holiday, Oladipo, Lamb, Warren, Holiday, Sabonis, McDermott, Turner, Bitadze. Very fun team. Easy team to watch. But in terms of making real noise in the playoffs, that's a tough ask. That brings me to the Toronto Raptors. The reality is, they just don't excite me. Do they have fun players? Yes. I like Fred VanVleet. I like OG Anunoby. I like Pascal Siakam. I like Kyle Lowry. Those guys can't get it done all by themselves. They needed Kawhi Leonard to win an NBA title. Kawhi's not going back to the Raptors anytime soon. They went out and signed Aaron Baines. That was a good move. But their bench is beyond awful. There is no one on their bench outside of Norman Powell that really scares me. Nick Nurse is a really good head coach. He won an NBA title. That takes skill. He's going to have his work cut out for him. The Raptors will get into the playoffs, but they're not going to make a lot of noise once they get there. My 8th seed in the East is going to surprise you. Probably the most improved team of the offseason. The 76ers were the second most improved team of the offseason, but the Atlanta Hawks are the most improved team, and I think they're going to make the playoffs. They brought in Rajon Rondo. They brought in Bogdan Bogdanovic. They brought in Danilo Gallinari. They drafted Onyeka Okongwu. They already have Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, and Clint Capella. Adding those veterans to this group of young guns will be invaluable for the Hawks. Trae Young is a really exciting player. Love watching him play. I think the Hawks are going to sneak into the playoffs as the 8th seed. That means I'm leaving the Washington Wizards out of the playoffs. Look, I don't think the Wizards are going to be dreadful this year. I just don't think they're better than the Hawks. I'm not a Russell Westbrook fan. Do I think he'll have a good season being coached by Scott Brooks again? Yes. Do I love Deni Avdija? Yes. Was it a good move for them to bring back Davis Bertans? Yes. Do they still have Bradley Beal? Yes. Do they still have Thomas Bryant? Yes. Do they have a lot of question marks? Absolutely. You have no idea how Westbrook and Beal are going to work out together. Westbrook is a tough guy to play with. It's very possible that that situation blows up. I'm not crazy about their bench. Ish Smith, Jerome Robinson, and Robin Lopez aren't world beaters. I'll say this. It wouldn't knock my socks off if the Wizards made the playoffs. But look at their roster, and look at the Hawks roster, and tell me which one's better. The answer is the Atlanta Hawks. As much fun as it would be to see Kevin Durant versus Russell Westbrook in the playoffs, I don't think it's going to happen. That brings me to the 10 seed, the Orlando Magic. A team that played well in the bubble last year. They made the playoffs. They gave the Bucks a run for their money. They took a couple games from them. They made the Bucks sweat. No one thought they would. The Magic aren't a terrible team, but do they really excite you? Do you really think they can go on a magical run? Jonathan Isaac is out for the year. Al-Farouq Aminu is banged up. That means that Chuma Okeke's going to get a lot of minutes. I don't see that ending well. I was never a big fan of their plan with him. Mo Bamba's a little banged up, even though I do like him. That does concern me. The Magic have players that I like. I like Markelle Fultz. I like Michael Carter-Williams. I like Cole Anthony. I like Evan Fournier. I like Aaron Gordon. I like Nikola Vujovic. I like Kem Birch. But the fact that they're so banged up, namely with Jonathan Isaac, I don't see them making the playoffs. But they will be a fun team to watch. They'll lose, but they'll lose valiantly. That brings me to another fun team, the Chicago Bulls. And yeah, they are fun. They have exciting players. Kobe White, Zach LaVine. I'm going to be interested in seeing how Patrick Williams plays. Lauri Markkanen, Wendell Carter. The thing with the Bulls is, for a while, we've been saying this is the year they take that big jump. We've been saying this is the year that the young guns show up. It's a weak Eastern Conference. These guys are going to ball out. The Bulls will be fine. Don't worry about it. They're a team that until I see it, I can't believe it. You get this sense that they really need a star if they're going to hit the fast forward button and actually make some noise. Can that be Zach LaVine? If anyone on the Bulls is going to do it, it's LaVine. But he's got a ways to go before he makes an all-star team. He just has too much competition. Speaking of young teams, the Cleveland Cavaliers are a young team. Yes, they still have Kevin Love. Yes, they have Andre Drummond and Larry Nance. But for the most part, they are a young team. Darius Garland, Colin Sexton, Isaac Okoro. The reality is I just don't like their roster. I don't think Garland and Sexton can play together. I never thought they could play together. You can't trust Kevin Love to stay healthy. Andre Drummond is a really good old school center. But how much can you count on old school centers to put you over the hump? I don't see the Cavs making any noise. They'll be lucky to get 30 wins. That brings me to the New York Knicks. And let me just say that even though I think they're going to finish 13th in the Eastern Conference, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It seems like they're rebuilding this team the right way. They're not linked to James Harden. They weren't linked to Bradley Beal or Jrue Holiday. Were they linked to Russell Westbrook? Yes. Did they do it? No. I think that's the right thing. Look, they're going to struggle. It's another rebuilding year. They've got to get their point guard situation settled. Can it be Emmanuel Quickley? Personally, I don't think so, but he's going to be given that chance. Can Kevin Knox take a big step forward and become a legitimate NBA starter? I'm not giving up on him, but he's running out of time. I like RJ Barrett. I like Julius Randle. I like Mitchell Robinson. But I just don't see them making any noise. I like what Leon Rose is doing. He's being patient. He's not doing what the Knicks usually do, which is go out and make blockbuster moves for stars. It seems like he has a good head on his shoulders. I didn't think that was going to work out, but so far, it looks like it's going to. That brings me to the Charlotte Hornets. Probably about as unexciting of a team as there is in the NBA. The only team that isn't as exciting as them is the Detroit Pistons. By process of elimination, you can tell that that's who I'm going to have last in the East. maybe the team that I'm going to have finish last in the West. Maybe. I don't know. It's close. The only thing the Hornets have going for them is LaMelo Ball. Yes, they have Gordon Hayward, but Gordon Hayward isn't going to be the best player on a playoff team anymore. PJ Washington is a solid player, so is Miles Bridges, but they're going to count on those guys for big roles. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to make any noise. They're going to be bottom feeders. Devontae Graham is a good young guard. LaMelo and Graham together? Yeah, that can work. But Terry Rozier is massively overpaid. Malik Monk is solid. Not great, not terrible. I just don't see who's going to lift the Hornets into relevancy. They're not better than the Knicks. They're just not. Like I said, the Detroit Pistons are last. I feel for you, Pistons fans. You guys are great fans. But man, you guys are going to stink this year. You'll be lucky to get 20 wins. Yay, Derrick Rose. Yay, Blake Griffin. A decade ago, if you had had those guys, NBA champions. Now, forget about it. Outside of them, there's literally no one on that roster that scares me. Killian Hayes, Sekou Doumbouya, and Isaiah Stewart, Sadiq Bey too, are solid young building blocks. But it's going to take them a while before they can get really good. The Pistons are going to stink this year. There's no doubt in my mind that they're going to finish in last in the Eastern Conference. Moving on now to the Western Conference. I hate to go chalk. I really do. But the Los Angeles Lakers won the NBA title and got better. That is very hard to do. They added Dennis Schroeder. They added Montrezl Harrell. They added Marc Gasol. They brought back AD. They signed LeBron and Kuzma to extensions. They brought back Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. In my eyes, the West is the Lakers' conference to lose until I see a team ball out and look fantastic. I don't see any team knocking off the Lakers. I mean, I'll say this. If any team can, it's one of these two teams. The Clippers and Warriors. I have the Clippers as the 2 seed and the Warriors as the 3 seed. I know that the Clippers lost Montrezl Harrell and Landry Shamet. But they added Luke Kennard, they added Nicholas Batum, and they added Serge Ibaka. Kennard is better than Shamet. And Ibaka is not that much worse than Harrell. And adding Batum is just the cherry on top. As long as they have Kawhi and Paul George, they're going to be threats in the West. There's no question about that. The Golden State Warriors suffered a big injury right around the time of the NBA draft. Klay Thompson out for the year again. That's all well and good, though, because they traded for Kelly Oubre. And Steph Curry is coming back. And they added James Wiseman. I understand that they don't have a great bench. No one outside of Nico Mannion really intrigues me. But I'd be a fool to bet against a starting lineup of Curry, Wiggins, Oubre, Green, and Wiseman. That's too good for me to pass up on. That brings me to the Denver Nuggets, a team that went on a crazy run to the Western Conference Finals last year and knocked off some good teams along the way, the Jazz and Clippers. Crazy series. Backs against the wall, the Nuggets thrived. I think the Nuggets' young guns are going to take a big step forward this year. Not Jamal Murray, not Monte Morris, not Gary Harris, not Will Barton, and not Nikola Jokic. Those guys we know are really, really good. And in the cases of Murray and Jokic, great. I'm talking about guys like Michael Porter Jr. and Bol Bol. It's their time to shine. It's their time to take a big step forward. And I think they will. They have all the potential in the world. You watch them play in practice, your jaw hits the floor at some of the things they can do. The Nuggets are just going to keep getting better and better and better. Unfortunately for them, they have 3 giants in front of them in the Lakers, Clippers, and Warriors. I was thinking about this before I started this show. The Western Conference this year, you can really divide into 4 tiers. Tier 1 contains the favorites to win the West. Lakers, Clippers, Warriors. Tier 2 consists of teams that you wouldn't be stunned if they won the West, but their ceiling is probably that of a second-round team. And that starts with the Nuggets. Tier 3 starts with the 7 seed. Teams that could make the playoffs very easily, but probably aren't going to make any noise when they get there. They're just not as good as the other teams. That goes from 7 to 11. And then 12 to 15 consists of the bottom feeders. The teams that in no way, shape, or form have any chance of making any noise in the playoffs. It doesn't work that way in the East. The East is 3 tiers. And the tiers aren't as ironclad. It just doesn't work for the East. It only works for the West. I know it's weird, but it's the truth. Going back to what I think will be the conference standings, I have the Utah Jazz as the 5 seed. A team that didn't get any better, but they didn't get any worse. They still have Donovan Mitchell, they still have Rudy Gobert, they still have Mike Conley, they still have Joe Ingles, they still have Bojan Bogdanovic, they still have Jordan Clarkson, they still have Royce O'Neal, they brought in Derek Favors. They won't be bad, I just think they're going to struggle to make any real noise in the playoffs. Another team like that is the Portland Trail Blazers. They did bring in Robert Covington. That was a good move. I like Rocco. Good 3-and-D guy. You gotta love Lillard and McCollum. Probably the best backcourt in the NBA. But how much help do they have? Yusuf Nurkic? Look, Nurkic is a really good player. But I don't think you want him as your third banana if you're going to make a big run. Same thing with a guy like Carmelo Anthony. Yes, they added Enes Kanter, but I don't see them as true threats. They will make the playoffs. Terry Stotts is a really good head coach. But I just don't see them as any better than a 6 seed. You get the sense that their window to win is rapidly fading. On the opposite end of that spectrum, a team that has its window to win just coming into view is the New Orleans Pelicans. I understand that they traded Jrue Holiday, but they got Eric Bledsoe in that trade. They got Steven Adams in that trade. Guys like Zion, B.I., Lonzo, and Jackson Hayes are only going to get better. David Griffin handled the Anthony Davis situation perfectly. He traded him for a package of really good young players and a bunch of draft picks. And now those pieces are coming together. I think Zion is primed for a big sophomore season. The Pelicans are the 7th seed. The last playoff team in the West, I think, will be the Dallas Mavericks. I can't bet against Luka. One of my favorite players in the NBA to watch. I understand that Kristaps Porzingis is banged up, because of course he is. But they added Josh Richardson. They still have Tim Hardaway. They still have Maxi Kleber. They still have Dwight Powell. They still have Jalen Brunson. And I can't bet against Luka. If Porzingis comes back and stays healthy, big if, the Mavericks will make the playoffs. It's not a guarantee, though. The Phoenix Suns could very easily take that 8 seed. The Suns are my 9 seed. Their young core of Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton is just going to get better and better. They brought in Jay Crowder. They still have Mikal Bridges. Cameron Johnson had a solid rookie year. Jalen Smith, it was a reach, but I think he's going to turn into a good player. But the reason that I have the Suns so high is because of Chris Paul. A guy whose veteran leadership, both on and off the court, can't be overstated. This is a young Suns team. They need a guy who they can learn from. Who better than the president of the Players Association? Who better than one of the greatest point guards of all time to fill their hole at point guard that they've had for years? The Suns could sneak into the playoffs. There's no question about that. But their bench just doesn't make enough sense for me to say that they're going to. Could it work? Yes. But ultimately, I think they're going to fall just a little bit short. That brings me to the Sacramento Kings. You remember what I said about the Chicago Bulls? They're a team who we kept saying, don't worry, this is the year that they break out. This is the year that their young guns take a big step forward. You can say the same thing about the Kings. Can Marvin Bagley stay healthy, please? What's going to happen with Buddy Hield? Is he going to buy into coming off the bench? I don't think he should come off the bench. I think he's right. But the bottom line is, that's a headache that the Kings are going to have to deal with. At the end of the day, De'Aaron Fox can't do it all himself. The Tyrese Halliburton pick was a great pick, and bringing in Hassan Whiteside was a really good move. But until I see the Kings make the playoffs and break the longest active playoff drought in the NBA, I can't say that they're going to make the playoffs. That brings me to the Memphis Grizzlies. It kills me to have them at 11 because they're such a fun team. Ja Morant, Dylan Brooks, Jaren Jackson, Jonas Valanciunas, Brandon Clark, Kyle Anderson, Grayson Allen, Tyus Jones. They're a really fun team. I like watching them play. But a lot of teams in the West got better. The Grizzlies really didn't. You take a look at teams like the Warriors, the Pelicans, the Suns. They got a lot better. I think that's going to hurt the Grizzlies. I really do. Could they sneak in? Yes, it's possible. They're on that third tier. But gun to my head, I don't think they're going to. That brings me to the Houston Rockets. A lot of people are saying that this is a playoff team. I understand that they still have James Harden. They added Christian Wood. They brought in DeMarcus Cousins. They brought in John Wall. I get all that. But do you have any idea how much the Harden situation is going to be a headache for the Rockets? Harden's going to take a lot of games off. He's going to have games where he says to the coach, my elbow feels funny, I don't want to play. He wants out of Houston. I don't begrudge him for it. I think it's going to be too much of a headache for the Rockets to deal with. I'm not saying Harden is definitely going to be traded, but this is going to be a cloud that hovers over the Rockets for as long as he's there. I don't see it ending well. The Minnesota Timberwolves have some good players. Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, and Jarrett Culver. But their forwards scare me. Josh Okogie, Jake Layman, Juan Hernan Gomez, Jaden McDaniels, and Jared Vanderbilt. None of those guys are that good, to be blunt. It's going to be interesting to see how Anthony Edwards does. I love D'Angelo Russell because of what he did with the Nets. But I don't see the Timberwolves making any real noise. That brings me to the San Antonio Spurs. It's the end of an era. It was the end of an era last year when they didn't make the playoffs in Disney. Just like the Patriots dynasty is over, the Spurs dynasty is over. They're not that good. DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge can't get the job done. DeJounte Murray and Derek White is a really talented backcourt. But I'm not a big Patty Mills fan. Lonnie Walker, Keldon Johnson, and Devin Vassell are fine, but you don't want them playing a bunch of meaningful minutes if you want to make a big playoff push. Rudy Gay isn't getting any younger. Jakob Poeltl's good, not great. I think the Spurs are going to be really bad this year. It's time for them to blow things up and build around Murray and White. If you want to throw Walker, Johnson, and Vassell in there also, you can. That means by process of elimination, I think the last team in the Western Conference will be the Oklahoma City Thunder. Realistically, I'd be surprised if they won 15 games. Sam Hinkie blew things up again. Out with Chris Paul, out with Steven Adams, in with Al Horford and Trevor Ariza. Shea is a really exciting player, and I like Lou Dort. He frustrated James Harden in the bubble. And I think Horford will have a big season this year because the Thunder have no one else in that front court. But outside of those guys, there's no one that really excites me. Darius Bazley shouldn't be starting. Mike Muscala and Kenrich Williams shouldn't have meaningful roles. This is a rebuilding year. The Thunder are going to try to get more draft picks. They're going to try to build from the ground up again because that's what they have to do since they play in Oklahoma City. I don't begrudge Sam Hinkie for anything, but it's going to be tough sledding for Thunder fans. They are really good fans. Hopefully, from the fact that I had the Nets and Lakers as the conference's 1 seeds, you could infer that I think they're going to meet in the NBA Finals. That's right, I think we're looking at a rematch of the 2002 NBA Finals. Just with many different players. It's going to be a great series. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving versus LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Look, I've said before that I think the Nets are going to win the NBA Finals this year. I'm not deviating from it. In a Game 7 in Brooklyn, with or without fans in the stands. If there are fans, I am going to do my damnedest to be there. The Brooklyn Nets will win the NBA championship. Regular episodes of The Jacob Valk Show come your way later today and tomorrow afternoon. Then it's time for my Christmas break. Until then, I am Jacob Valk saying that ball players and deer hunters are alike. They both want the big bucks.